Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome to Green Valley Digital Classes, and today we shall be discussing chapter number 3 of 11th Business Studies. And today's chapter is all about different forms of public and private enterprises. In the previous chapters we discussed forms of business. Before that we discussed introduction to the business. And at the end of forms of business we created the distinction between public enterprises and public enterprise and private enterprises. As far as public enterprises are considered, we knew that it is partially or fully financed by government, or private enterprises, they are controlled and owned and financed by private individuals. Public companies, their shares are transferable, they have different number of directors, they have different number of members, and so on and so forth. Now, what we have to discuss in this chapter is different forms of public and private enterprises. As far as public enterprises are considered, we have to discuss three forms of public enterprises. First is departmental undertaking. Second one is statutory corporation. And third one is government company. So these three different forms of public enterprises we have to discuss in this very particular chapter. As far as private enterprises are considered, we discussed in the previous chapter about sole proprietorship, about partnership, and today what we have to discuss in private enterprises are two forms, that is MNCs, multinational corporations, and joint ventures. So this is the broad outlook of what this chapter is all about. So three forms of different public enterprises and two forms of large private enterprises. So starting with the first, that is departmental undertaking. As far as departmental undertaking is considered, it is one of the oldest forms of public enterprises. These form of enterprises are financed by the government and they are created under a particular ministry headed by a minister. So if we have to simply define it, so these departmental undertakings are public enterprises created and financed by government, and they are created under a particular ministry headed by a minister. So when we talk of departmental undertaking, the simple thing to remember is that they are the government departments which are created by government, they are financed by government, they are controlled by the government, and the most important part, that it is created under a ministry and it is headed by a minister. A simple example is railways. Indian Telegraph Department. Then Postal Services Department. So these are the different departments or the examples of departmental undertakings that India has. Railways, Indian Telegraph Department, and Postal Services Department. They are created within the government, they are part of the government, and they will function as they are the departments of the government, and they are headed by the minister. And they will work under the guidance of the minister, and minister shall be the head of the department. So a clear-cut understanding of this departmental undertaking is that these are created by government and they are created under a specific ministry and headed by a specific minister. And minister is the one who will supervise all the activities of this departmental undertaking. So as far as its features are considered, first, it's financed by the government. So it can be either a state government or central government. And second thing is, it is headed by the minister. So this minister is the supervisor of this very particular department, and it has no distinction from the government. Because this department works as a part of government, so there is no distinction made between a departmental undertaking and the government. its functions and government's functions. It will be taken as if it is part and parcel of the government. Whatever the government decides, they will implement it through these departmental undertakings. Indian Railways, Telegraph Department and Postal Services Department, they are all thought of as part of the government and as an integral part of the governmental departmental undertakings, and these ministers are their supervisors, so they will not be identified as something distinct from the government. Then we have accounting and audit through Parliament. We can also say that it has legislative scrutiny. We can say that the functioning of these departments, whether it is Telegraph, whether it is Indian Railways, they are all scrutinized by the members of the Parliament. So it has to provide its performance, financial year's performance, to the Parliament of the country. And these parliaments will create certain scrutinies and will ask certain questions in case certain discrepancies are to be formed. And these departments are controlled by the government through its minister. So these departments are created by the government and they are controlled by the government, and through a minister they have a full authority and absolute control over these departments. And government appoints its employees. So since these departments are part of the government, it is just like an organ of the government, so they will appoint their employees in these various departmental undertakings, whether it is Indian Railways, whether it is Indian Telegraph, or whether it is Postal Services Department. And these employees shall be government employees. And the management of these departments is through these government employees, or you can say civil servants. So it is the government who will appoint all the employees of these departments, and they are the government employees, and through these employees they will manage all these departmental undertakings. So again, if we repeat it, so the first thing that we have, that it is financed by the government, either by the state government or by the central government. Second, it is headed by the minister. This very particular point makes departmental undertaking a unique enterprise comprised to statutory corporation and government company. Then there is no distinction from the government. So a departmental undertaking is not a separate legal entity. It will be taken as a part and parcel of the government, and it will be taken as if it is government in itself. Then accounting and audit through Parliament. So we can say it has parliamentarian scrutiny. The performance of these departments are presented in front of the Parliament. Parliament will audit it, Parliament will scrutinize it, and if in certain case there are discrepancies, so it has to be answerable to the Parliament. Then it is controlled by the minister. And it is controlled by the minister means that, like we said, that it is headed by the minister. So he is the absolute head of the department, and he will oversee, supervise all the functioning of these departments. Then government appoints its own employees in these departments. So it is not autonomous in any which way, neither financially nor in management way. So if these departments need employees, so they have to apply for the government, and government will make provisions for providing them all the necessary employees they require. And these employees form the management through which all these departmental undertakings are managed. Now, this was all about the features of these departmental undertakings. Now, if we discuss the merits of these departments, the first and the biggest merit of these departments is that easy formation. Why it is easy to form? Because the decision lies with the government. Government, when it feels, when it needs, it can create a departmental undertaking. It doesn't need permission from anyone. It doesn't have to pass a special act, as in statutory corporation, where a statutory corporation cannot be created until and unless the special statute in Parliament is passed. So it is a matter of chance whether that will be passed or not. But as far as departmental undertaking is concerned, it is easy to form because there is no provision for it to be created in the Parliament so as to create these departmental undertakings. In simpler terms, if government decides, it can create as many departments as possible. It can create multiple departments if it feels like. So it is easy to form. Second one is government control. Government control, because it is financed by the government, the employees are hired by the government, it has a minister which heads the department, so government has a full control over these departments. Nothing can be done in these departments without the prior permission of the government and without the prior permission of the minister. Then it aids into the revenue of the government. That means if you pay the railways ticket or if you pay for postal services, all the revenue goes to the government. So any income of these departmental undertakings is the revenue of the government. So it aids, it helps in building up the revenue of these departments. Another reason for government to create many more departments, because they know that they will aid to their revenue and they will increase their yearly revenue. Then legislative scrutiny. A very important part, like we discussed in the features itself, that these departmental undertakings are subject to legislative scrutiny. What do we mean? That means the yearly performance is reviewed and put forth in front of the Parliament, in front of the ministers, in front of the opposition, and the debate is created, the debate is held, and as to review the performance of this very department, and in case any problem is found, the Parliament will take an action against this particular department. If in case there is a discrepancy, there is a case of corruption, or there is some problem with the department, so everything is scrutinized through legislative assemblies and legislative councils and Parliament. Then we have generation of employment. One of the biggest merits of these departmental undertakings is that it helps in generating employment. You see plenty of millions of people who are employed in various departments, in railways, in postal services, in All India Radio and Doordarshan. These are all departmental undertakings, and you see lakhs of people who are getting employment. So first, aid to revenue. These departments are created so that it will generate revenue for the government. And second thing, it generates employment. So if government feels that there is unemployment in the country, so it can create multiple departmental undertakings so as to remove the problem of unemployment. If it feels our revenues are decreasing, so it can create other departments so that it may increase their revenue. So these were the simple merits of these departmental undertakings. As far as demerits are considered, the two of the biggest demerits of these departmental undertakings is government interference. Government interferes in these departments. Because it is financed by government, because it is controlled by government, there is a minister who oversees everything, every function of this department. So no activity in these departments can be done with autonomy, and government interferes in each and every aspect of the departmental functioning. And then we have red tapeism. Even you can say nepotism is practiced. Because government has full control, So they will push in their people for the employment. They will push in their selfish interests in these departments. They will push their people whom they favor to take up higher posts in these departments. So there is red tapeism and nepotism because they are fully controlled. If these departmental undertakings would have been autonomous organizations, so the interference would have lacked and there would have been no nepotism. People would have been employed based on their merit, based on their skills, based on their talent. But because government interferes in these departments, so there is some kind of red tapeism and nepotism practice wherein government pushes their people. They may be skilled, they may be even unskilled, they may be even not related to the various departmental undertakings. They do not even know what they are supposed to do in these departments. They are not qualified enough to be employed in these departments. So government uses its powers and pushes its people whom it favors to these various departmental undertakings. So these were all merits and demerits of these departmental undertakings. The second form of public enterprise that we shall discuss is statutory corporation. A very unique form of public enterprise and very different from departmental undertaking. So statutory corporation, you shall remember, is a special kind of public enterprise which is created by passing a special statute. That's why the name is statutory corporation. So these organizations cannot be created like we saw in departmental undertaking, where government thought it can create a department, so they went ahead and created a departmental undertaking without consulting any other organization like the opposition, like any other member of the parliament. But as far as statutory corporations are created, if they are to be created, a special statute is to be passed in the parliament, and this statute is the legislation, or you can say the law through which it is created. So no statutory corporation can be created without the passing of this special statute. If this statute is passed, then only we can create this statutory corporation. And there can be no two statutory corporations. So once this statutory corporation is created, you cannot create again. Because once the law is passed, you cannot pass similar kind of law again to create another statutory corporation. Like we have an example of RBI. RBI is the Central Bank of India. It is a statutory corporation and it was created after passing a special statute. You don't see another RBI functioning in the country because the law through which RBI was created, this law again cannot be passed and second type of RBI cannot be created. So RBI is a central bank and it's a statutory corporation and passed only after clearing statute in the parliament. So this statute will specify its objectives, its powers and its functions. So this statute will specify what are the objectives of this particular statutory corporation, what are the powers of this very particular corporation, and what are the functions of this very particular corporation. Taking an example of RBI. RBI, if I see that what are its powers and functions, it is defined by the statute. One power that RBI has is issuing currency. No other authority, even the president, even the prime minister, even the whole cabinet of the central government has no authority to issue the currency. It is only the central bank, that is RBI in India, which can issue currency, which can issue notes for the people to use. No other authority is there. So it is defined, it is the power which RBI has and it is defined in the statute through which RBI was created. Another power that it has is foreign exchange reservoir or custodian. RBI is the custodian of the foreign exchange, the currency which a country has, whether it has to provide currency to other countries, whether it has to purchase currency from other countries. it acts as a reservoir, it acts as a sole controller of that foreign exchange. So it is a custodian, not the central government, not the state government, not the president, neither the prime minister, not the vice president. They don't have any authority over custodian of foreign exchange. It is the RBI who is the custodian of the foreign exchange. Even if the government requires foreign exchange for some activities, they will have to request RBI. They cannot do it on their own. And as far as functions are considered, we can say it has a supervisory function. It is a supervisor of other banks in the country. So you see different kinds of public and private banks. You see State Bank of India, you see Punjab National Bank, you see J&K Bank, you see ICICI, you see cooperatives. They are all under the control of RBI. And this is one of the primary functions of RBI. It acts as a supervisor of all these banks. It will issue directions to these banks, and these banks have to follow the directions of the RBI. So powers and functions of RBI, they are all defined in this very particular statute through which Statutory Corporation was created. So again, we can define Statutory Corporation. It is a public enterprise which is created by government, yes, but it is created only after passing the special statute in the Parliament, and this statute will define the objectives, will define the powers, will define the functions of the organization. And second thing, there can be no two statutory corporations, and they are autonomous, especially financial autonomy. Like departmental undertaking, it was wholly and solely dependent on the government for its finances. Government will provide the finance, this department can function. But here, the statutory corporation is financially autonomous. It is not dependent on the government to provide finances. It will generate its own finance and it will fund its own activities. So this financial autonomy gives a lot of other operational autonomies as far as statutory corporation is considered. Another autonomy is that they hire professional management. And efficient personnel. So when we say that they are financially autonomous, they have autonomy, it simply refers to financial autonomous. Yes, but again, this autonomy goes down to another part, that is, they are free to hire their own people. Like in departmental undertaking, it was the government which will hire for the departmental undertakings. But as far as statutory corporation is considered, these hire their own people, and particularly they will hire those people who are efficient, and they choose their own management, and it is managed by board of directors. So government will appoint the board of directors of this very organization, and this board of director will be an autonomous organization who will take decisions independently, who will take decisions with consultation of other members of the board, but there is very less interference as far as these statutory corporations are considered. Like we saw in departmental undertaking, government had plenty of interference in those departments, whereas in statutory corporation, the interference is less because they are financially autonomous, they hire their own professional management, and they have a separate board of directors who will overlook each and everything of the department. And then the important part is there can be no two statutory corporations of this nature. And then we have, it has service motive. Like any other public enterprise, statutory corporation also has service motive. It is not created for earning profits. It is there for the welfare of the people. But one thing that we have to remember, even though it has a service motive, it is run on commercial lines. What do we mean by commercial lines? This department will be run by this board of directors, this management, as if they are running a commercial institution, as if they are running a business institution who is trying to earn profits. So they will always thrive on efficiency. They will always thrive on operational productivity. They cannot discuss or they cannot even think of going towards losses, going towards sickness. While as you see many departmental undertakings, they are sick, they are into losses. Why? Because their operational inefficiencies are there. Government departments are full of inefficient people, and plus they know they will be funded by the government, so it doesn't matter whether we have losses or profits. But these statutory corporations, they are financially autonomous, so they have no scope of getting into losses. So because there is no scope of that, so they will be run on commercial lines. Again, I will repeat what commercial lines means. It means that they will be run as if we are running a private enterprise. We are after profits, even though profit is not their motive. Their motive is service, but because to create their operational and efficiencies, we have to run it on commercial lines. So this was all about the features of statutory corporations. As far as the merits of this statutory corporations are considered, the biggest merit is that it is financially autonomous. As we discussed in the features itself, that any statutory corporation, once it is created through the special statute, it has defined its objectives, it has defined its powers, and it has defined its functions. So now it becomes autonomous. It generates its own finances, it finances its own activities. It is in no way dependent on the government to provide the finances. Second, service motive and run on commercial lines. So because these organizations, they are financially autonomous, so they have no scope of inefficiencies, so they will run on commercial lines. They will work as if they are a private institution who are after profits. So they will be always after efficiency, efficiency and efficiency, and even though they have the service motive. Then quick decision making. Another important merit of this statutory corporation. Like in departmental undertaking, there was government interference. No decision would have been taken without the consultation of the government. So there's a bureaucracy that comes in, there are too many hierarchies that come in, and the decisions get delayed. Because this is independent, autonomous organization, it has its own board of directors. So they will consult each other without the interference of the government, and they will take the decisions. So the decisions are quick, they are fast, and irrespective of finance by the government will have no say in decision making of these statutory corporations. Then we have efficient management. Because they hire their own individuals, they hire their own employees, so they are having efficient management. They have their own board of directors, they have their own people whom they hire, and it is but natural that they would like to hire the best of the people, the efficient people, the skilled people, and thus creating efficient management. While as in department undertaking, there was inefficiencies. One of the reasons was because the management is by the government, and government pushes in people with favors, with those who have inefficiencies, who are not skilled. Nepotism is practiced, red tapeism is there, thus inefficiencies are found in departmental undertakings. While as in statutory corporation, they will have efficient management, and efficient management is because of they are hiring independently. They are not dependent on government to hire people, and thus creating an environment within the organization that is full of efficiency, and they can practice those commercial objectives which they have. So this was all about two public enterprises, that is departmental undertaking and statutory corporation. As far as government company is considered, we have already discussed in chapter number 2, where we differentiated between public enterprise and public enterprise and private enterprise. So government enterprises, I can simply introduce, is they are partially or fully funded by the government. It's an separate legal entity. It is the capital having worth a joint stock company, and the shares are freely transferable. Rest the features of the government company are as good as a public company. We discussed these two because they were different from public company. Thus, we shall discuss this in these chapters, and we discussed it and hope that you understood everything. So like we discussed, that another important role of the public enterprises is generation of employment. You see, departmental undertakings are created, statutory corporations are created with only single purpose. Yes, it may generate revenue for the government, but again, it can solve the problem of unemployment. So the role of public enterprises is that it can help in generation of employment. Then, balanced regional growth. You see various private enterprises creeping up, but their preference are urban areas, semi-urban areas. They will never choose rural areas or those areas where infrastructure is not there, where infrastructure is lacking. So what will happen? It will create an imbalance. Some areas will be highly developed and some areas will be poorly developed. So what to do? So government establishes their enterprises in these less developed areas so that it can be developed. Yes, cities have private enterprises. They have small shops, they have larger shops, they have retailing stores, they have industrial units. But what about the rural areas? Those areas which are far flung from the main city, how are they to be developed? So it is the role of the public enterprises to create that regional development, to create them, to give them growth, so that they can establish their enterprises there. Infrastructure will develop, employment will be generated, and it can lead to growth. So that region can be expanded, it can be grown, it can be developed only when there are industries, when there are departmental, statutory corporations and other government companies established by the government. Private enterprises will not choose that part because they are after commercial benefits, while as public enterprises are there for benefit of the people. So one benefit is their region should be developed, their region should grow. So how to create the balanced regional growth? One area is expanded, one area is developed, other area is not. So that other area is the developmental feature for these public enterprises because they will establish their units there and help that area to be developed. Then we have remove concentration of power. Because private enterprises are large in number, they have good financial strength, they have good technological avenues, they have large number of employees available to them, they will choose best professional people, so they have the power in the market. It may lead to exploitation of the people, it may lead to exploitation of customers, it may lead to some corrupt activities. So how do I take back the power? How do I balance this power? Is by creating public enterprises which can give them a competition, and the power is restored back to balance. So some power resides with public enterprises and some power resides with private enterprises. We know that public enterprises are there for the people, for the benefit of people, and private enterprises they are for the profit. So this can be balanced, and the power which may reside to exploitation of the consumers with private enterprises can be balanced by creating more public enterprises. And then at the end we have industrialization. So it is the role of the public enterprises to help in industrialization, to develop micro units, to develop small units, to develop cottage industries, to develop small scale industries, to develop tiny industries, so that it can lead to industrialization. And like we said, we have to have import substitution. This import substitution can only be possible when there is industrialization. The more the industrialization, the more our domestic production will increase. The more the domestic production will increase, the more we will be able to substitute our imports with exports. So this was the changing role of the public sector enterprises as far as India is considered. So public sector enterprises are there for development of infrastructure, there for the import substitution by increasing the domestic production. And domestic production can be increased only through industrialization by creating MSMEs, micro, small enterprises. Then generation of employment. So it is the role, I can say, it is the moral authority and moral responsibility of public sector enterprises to generate employment and then balance regional growth, balance regional development. So they cannot focus on one area where they will have industrialization and leave other area as such underdeveloped. So it is their role to again develop small micro units there so that that region also can be developed. Then removing the concentration of power that is created when there are growth of private enterprises. They will be after profits, they will be after the revenues, so it may lead to exploitation. They may use their power to influence governments, they may use their power for corruption. So how to balance that power? By creating more public sector enterprises. And then industrialization. So it is the role of the government enterprises to create industrialization by providing better infrastructure, by providing infrastructural facilities that will help young entrepreneurs to develop their units. Thus, industrialization will in turn help in import substitution. So this was all about public enterprises and the role of the public enterprises that has changed since 1991. Now what we have to discuss is the private enterprises part of this chapter. And in that, the first thing that we have to discuss is MNCs, multinational corporations. Like the name itself depicts what these organizations are. These are multinational corporations. So we can say these are corporations or organizations which has business activities in more than one country. This is the most concise and the simple definition of this very particular organization. Multinational corporations are those business organizations which have their business activities in more than one country. So it can be 2, it can be 3, it can be 10, it can be 20, it can be 30, it can be 40, it can be even 50. So a multinational corporation it has its business activities in more than one country. As minimum, it has to have 2. Maximum, it can go to any number it has. So the biggest examples are Philips, Samsung, Sony, Xiaomi, Apple, and furthermore. So these are some of the biggest examples of multinational corporations that we find, and we use all their products in our daily lives, be it Philips, be it Samsung, be it Sony, be it Xiaomi, be it Apple, be it any other multinational corporations, and you will find their business operations in plenty of countries. Apple has manufacturing in their own country, it has its assembly in America, it has its retail stores in different parts of the world. And Samsung, it has its manufacturing in India also, it has its manufacturing in other countries of the world, it has its different retailing stores across many countries of the world. So a multinational corporation or transnational corporation also we can call it, is that they have their business operations in more than one country, minimum 2. And it is controlled by headquarters in home country. So like I say, for example, this is the headquarter of any multinational corporation and it has its business operations in different countries. So this headquarter will act as a supervisor for all the subsidiaries in different parts of the world. So let's say, for example, we have Apple. We know it is USA based company. So any other country in which Apple has its operations, all the operations will be supervised, will be checked by headquarters in the USA. And USA shall be the home country, and other countries where its operations are, be it in India, be it in China, be it in other parts, they will be called as host countries. So the home country is a country where the headquarters is located, And host countries are those countries in which the business functions of these corporations are situated. So USA has the headquarters of Apple. So USA becomes the home country. China, India, and many more countries where the retailing stores, where the assembling plants are located, situated, they'll be termed as host countries. So as far as features of these MNCs are considered, the first and the foremost feature of this MNCs are giant size. And it is logical in itself that these companies have operations in 10, 20, 30, even if I say Walmart is the world's largest retailer. It has its operations in more than 50 countries. So we can only imagine what the size of this corporation shall be. So the first and the most distinct feature of this corporation is that it has a giant size. It is situated in different countries. It has its operation in multiple countries, which is headed by the headquarter. But still, the size is very large. Then, operations in different countries. This is what it makes MNC and MNC, because it has its operations in different countries. If it was only in one country, then it could not have been an MNC. Why it is an MNC? Because operations of this corporation is with many countries. Then, sophisticated technology. These countries, because they are filled with finance, they have large amount of financial abilities, so they will hire the best possible technology they have. Like you see Philips, you see Apple, you see Samsung, you see Sony, you see Xiaomi, even Walmart, Carrefour, Tesco. All these are using the best possible technology there is. And when they go into a country, like for example, Apple is an American company, when it goes to China, India, it gets its technology with it. So it helps host country to benefit from that technology also. So there's a transfer of technology. This is one of the biggest merits of MNCs, is that there's a transfer of technology. There's a transfer of skill from home country to host country. The host country can benefit from that sophisticated technology which these MNCs have. Then, centralized management. Like we discussed in the introduction itself, that no matter how many subsidiaries these MNCs may have, it shall always be controlled by headquarters in its home country. So this home country shall act as a supervisor. Yes, they will give certain autonomy to these subsidiaries in different host countries, but nothing can be done without the prior consultation of the headquarters. So the management is centralized. Headquarters will control all the activities and the functions of these subsidiaries in different parts of the world. Then we have professional management. Because they are operating such a big corporation, they have the best of the technology available to them. So they don't take a chance of hiring those people who are less professional, who are less skilled, who are semi-skilled. So they will be only after those people who are highly professional, who are highly efficient, who are highly skilled. So you will see Philips, Samsung, Apple, Sony paying millions of dollars to individuals so that they can hire their services for managing these organizations. $350 million were paid to Tim Cook to become the CEO of the Apple. Satya Nadella, Sundar Pichai, these are some of the classic examples where millions of dollars were paid to these people to act as a CEO, CFO, CEOs, so that they can have the best possible management of these organizations. Because they know the size is large, the large of operations are there in different countries, and they have to earn their profits, so inefficiency is out of question. So inefficiency is out of question, they will hire the best possible management. And they have international market. Also, it's common sense that when they are operating in different countries, these MNCs enjoy international market. Like you see Xiaomi, it's a Chinese company. It has India as a market, it has Pakistan as a market, it has Bangladesh as a market, it has Afghanistan as a market, it has USA as a market, it has Europe as a market. Even in Apple, Apple is a USA based company. It has China as a market, it has European countries as a market, it has Asia as a market. So all these MNCs enjoy international market. So if a company is only a domestic company, it will enjoy only the domestic market. The market is limited. But when it is an international company, the market will expand. It will have the numerous number of customers. It will have number of more markets to cater to. So again, this can be the merit also of these MNCs. So the size of the market also increases. Then we have innovation. Because they have sophisticated technology, they have large amount of financial resources, so they will always be after innovation. And they know when they go into the different country, let's say for example, Xiaomi is coming to India. India already has competition of Samsung, Sony, Philips, and Apple as well. So how to compete? So Xiaomi has to go through innovations. It will provide the products, it will innovate its business operations, it will innovate its management operations so that it can survive in that tough market. So innovation becomes the prime feature of these multinational corporations. Take any example across the board, whether MNC is related to electronics, whether MNC is related to retail, whether MNC is related to production, whether MNC is related to processing. KFC for that matter, doesn't it innovate every time? What is new there to eat in food? All it does, it innovates new combinations of food, new offers, because they know they are facing the competition in those markets. So and how to survive in those markets is through innovation. That's why you will see KFC coming with new features, spicy chicken, grilled chicken, XYZ chicken, all because they know that without innovation they cannot survive. So these were the features of MNCs. And if we may see the merits, one of the biggest merit is this sophisticated technology. So this can be first merit. Second, professional management. Third, international market. And fourth, innovation. So these four can be the biggest merits of these, or the benefits of these multinational corporations. So the last topic that we shall discuss in this very chapter is joint ventures. You may remember Maruti Suzuki. One a Japanese company, one an Indian company. They came together and formed a single business, and that shall be termed as joint venture. So joint venture is a business enterprise wherein two firms join together to create a new business. So two firms, Maruti and Suzuki, who are independent. Suzuki was working in Japan, Maruti was working in India, but they collaborated, they combined together and formed a new form of business, Maruti and Suzuki. What can be the reason of this joint venture? So as the name says, joint venture. They are taking up a venture jointly. But these are two independent firms, independent corporations who are coming together, pooling their resources, pooling their technology, pooling their finances, so that they can create a new business venture and they can benefit from each other. In this example, Suzuki had the technology and Maruti had the market. So what was lacking? Suzuki didn't have market, Maruti didn't have technology. So they combined the two. Suzuki gave Maruti the technology, Maruti gave Suzuki the market. So Suzuki benefited from Maruti, Maruti benefited from Suzuki. And thus you can see one of the most successful joint ventures of the world is Maruti and Suzuki's joint venture, and you can see even today you see plenty of cars by Maruti Suzuki and having sophisticated technology, having the good market share in Indian market, in overseas as well. So the primary reason of the joint venture is that there is lacking in both the firms, or it can be of 3 firms, it can be of 4 firms, but here we are talking of 2 firms only, that one firm is lacking something and second firm is also lacking something. So they will collaborate with each other and they will complete their problems with each other. Another joint venture which was created in India was Renault and Mahindra, but unfortunately it did not succeed. While as many joint ventures, you see joint venture between Airtel and Walmart, they created Best Price. It's a retailing store. So joint ventures is nothing but 2 or more than 2 independent firms coming together, pooling their resources and creating a new business venture so that they can benefit from each other's operations and resources. So the benefit of joint venture is there is transfer of technology, there is transfer of resources, there is joint collaboration. And what it happens, if Suzuki had to enter Maruti's market, that is in India, Maruti was the competitor. So it eliminated the competition by joining with Maruti and thus reducing the competition, thus reducing the risk. So this was all about MNCs and joint ventures. Hope you have understood everything, and inshallah I shall see you in the next video lectures, and for till that time, fi amanillah, and thank you so much.